Season 1, Chapter 5, Do Your Job.
Welcome to Starting Now, a Barry podcast, presented by Cinemasins.
Hello, everybody. This is Starting Now, the Barry podcast with Chris Atkinson and Barrett Scher.
Hello!
And Mike Hester.
Hey, everybody. I don't have any silly intros like you do.
Yes! I'm so excited to talk about this episode that my voice is at a weird pitch.
So, in Chapter 5, Do Your Job, this is all about Barry and Taylor, who wanted to do the job the last time. He told him that, hey, whatever you're into, this is what I want to do too. And Taylor is calling him and is like, "Hey, Barry, what's up? Let's do it. Killing people. That's great. That's awesome.
Kill those Chechen jets.
Kill those Bolivian jet. Yeah, let's do that. And then his next message is, "Hey, Barry, have you done that?" I want in. I would just call. I want in, man. And then it's sort of a fight, a tug of war between him and Fuchs in this one, because Fuchs finds out that he's told him about this, and there's a big scene where Fuchs is like, goes in the shower and he's like, "Shit, fuck." He's like, "All right, I thought about this." Walks out in a towel. I'm sorry, I thought about this.
For a one-note a character that starts off as one note as Taylor, there is some nuance to him. There's some weirdness to him. He's not just like David Putty or anything like that. Like there's more to that character than I initially expected, especially given those voicemails of just being like, "Hey, you killed those Bolivians. I want in." All right, fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
And he seems pleasant. He seems nice, but he seems like he would do anything for Barry, but he's just like a loser. I don't know.
Well, no, he's he's all id, right? If we were going to be Freudian about the whole thing, he's all id. Like everything that he does is either, like, fuck yeah, let's do this. And like when they're planning this whole, this is later in the episode, but like when Barry is like sitting there, like telling him, "Okay, we're going to go in here. And, I want you to just know that this is what we're going to do. And just in case this happens." And Taylor's just got this blank stare. Like, all I want to do is just go in here and do this.
He
doesn't care about the plan.
Yes, he doesn't seem to totally care about his own life in a lot of ways.
No.
It's just you just wonder if something went wrong when he was in the service.
Something with
went
that guy. Yeah.
really wrong, and he came out of that just totally fucked up.
Yeah.
So, and he doesn't have like an outlet like maybe Barry does. Barry has been a hitman forever and has killed people. He wants violence. He wants that in his life, and he hasn't had a way, and he sees a way, and he wants in. He doesn't care how. He doesn't care what the consequences are. He wants in, and he's absolutely dead set on it. So
it's a nice juxtaposition, because I believe that he's listening to those voicemails on the way to acting class, where just like a fucking middle school, Gene has posted the roles for the Macbeth showpiece on the fucking front door, and everybody's running up and looking for their fucking.
You have the one guy who's like, "I better be Titus Andronicus. I better be Titus." He's like, "Oh, burn this whole thing to the ground." He's like, Puck again." But yeah, that's you have a little bit of he gets to talk to Sally a little bit, but Sally isn't having it still,
and talk about some real shit right there, by the way, because in any other show, it would go either one way or another, right? It would either be like, "I'm ghosting you, fuck off," or, "Okay, let's talk this out. Let's resolve this," that kind of thing. But it's the best of both worlds, right? She's just like, she's trying to blow him off at first. He's, relentless about it. And then she's like, "Here's the actual adult way to do this. Like, give me months, give me a long time to get over this, because there's some shit happening here." And that's some real-ass dialogue right there. I love it.
And she breaks out the toxic masculinity line. I think you have some toxic masculinity you need to deal with. That really lands with him, and he starts thinking about his own issues. And as the episode goes on, he's trying to dial things back, and I think it goes all the way to the last scene, which we'll get to.
It
eventually.
really does. It does go back to the change in directors. So we had Bill Hader for the first three. Then we had Maggie Carey directed the fourth one, which again I thought took a very different perspective, maybe for the betterment of the series. But this is Hiro Murai comes in, who had directed some episodes of Atlanta, right?
Yep.
And who famously directed the This Is America Childish Gambino video. And I think this guy's a fucking genius.
Yeah,
I think he's amazing.
And if you've seen it, the Guava Island that was on Amazon.
Oh, he did that.
He's done that too. I wasn't a big fan of that. Like, it's a breezy movie. It's like an hour long or whatever, and it's fine. It's just not. It's got that same look. He's got a look to his things that is especially in his Atlanta episodes. He's definitely one of those guys we're gonna have to keep an eye on in the next few years and see what he comes out with, because I hope he branches out of TV and does features.
Yeah.
Because he's one of those type of guys. You brought up the toxic masculinity thing, which I thought was he throws this off as a funny line with Fuchs when Fuchs tells him that he needs to kill Taylor. He's like, we don't kill Marines like that. You know, that's toxic masculinity. So it's a funny line, but it also shows you how he took that line. He's thinking this whole time, I'm going to be found out. I'm going to be found out. I'm going to be found out. When she says you have toxic masculinity, he's like, oh no, does that mean that she's saying that in reference to me being a killer? Cold-blooded killer? She must be. And then when he says that, it's funny, but it's also like, it makes sense. It makes logical sense to his character to think that toxic masculinity means cold-blooded killing.
Yeah.
And he starts to see the hitman part as that, and some of the, if he's killing people he doesn't need to kill, and I don't know if he's had that before. That's something that's
and then it gets reinforced later on. We're skipping around a little bit, but it gets reinforced by the acting troupe or whatever. Because he does it's a great scene where he's playing in Macbeth. It's the spot scene with Lady Macbeth.
Yes.
And of course Darcy Carden is playing Lady Macbeth.
Is it Natalie?
Yeah, Natalie character's playing it, and Sally's back there just like a bit part, and Barry's playing Macbeth, and he's just all of a sudden, do you mark that?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And he's just waiting for this and that kind of thing. And that brings up a discussion about the soul behind your character, and who is the soul of Macbeth, and what has he done? He's killed people.
Well, and Natalie is playing this part exactly like Christopher Guest at the end of Waiting for Guffman. Is talking about how to do a British type of thing, because she's over enunciating all the apostrophed words. Yeah. So it's a lot of error or ooh, and all that, and there's no real affect to anything. It's she really is saying the words, which is what Sally accuses her of, and she's like, that's very offensive, and but she really is. That's what she's doing. She's just saying the words. She's not in the character at all.
Yeah.
And Sally really, it's pretty self-serving that she is doing this and taking her down. She's a very self-centered person.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we see it a lot in this episode. And later on, after Barry has said all of the stuff on stage, which we need to go more into, and she says, boy, he went too far. She is saying, everyone else says, oh, he killed, he has a whole different mindset that we didn't see, and they're taking his side, and she's going against him for different reasons. I thought it was him on stage was the fascinating part, how it plays into Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, at where he is saying, if you take orders, then it's not as bad. Because that is his reality, and he goes into this whole thing. And then Gene says, the military that, he thinks he's talking about when he's in the military, which makes perfect sense. And then what does he say? He says, and I thank you. I thank you for your service.
That real
I think we can all agree.
That real fake thing. And even Natalie gives the polite clap and everything. And he goes, but I think we would all agree that if you kill outside of war, you're a fucking psycho.
Yeah, that causes him to freak out. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's so many parallel storylines happening in this episode, but starting with that toxic masculinity thing, and then feeding into that Taylor needs to go thing, and then reinforced by them saying, no, you're a fucking psycho. Like, the whole class is agreeing with him. Like, who would do this as a normal human being? And as he's developing as an actor, he's developing as a character, which should be the polar opposite, right? You should have your personal life, and then you should, inform a character. But these are both kind of like raising at the same time, because he's never had a personality basically until now.
Yeah. On top of all of this, you have Detective Moss, who's found the trying to bring the picture into the class, and everybody's got, what is this? Is this a face on this? So like, most time you look at a person, they have a face. And
I love Bill Hader in that scene. He's sitting there and he doesn't know. I mean, his life could be fucked.
Yeah.
And they're passing this paper around, and he looks at it, and it's just obviously okay. And everyone's looking, seeing that there's nothing there. And well, there was the one they said, it's like, see, what is the one guy is like, we were doing this scene once with CSI.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you go, and they just enhance the photos. Like, well, like in the scene, we caught him. I'm just saying.
She goes, he goes, we did this on a CSI thing and everything, and we enhanced the photo, and she goes, enhancing's not a thing.
Yes, I know.
And then he goes, well, in the episode, we caught him.
Exactly.
I'm choosing to imagine that that's a Cinemasins shout out.
Yeah, it really is.
But then Cousineau says, be on the lookout for a man with no discernible features. He killed your friend.
Again, Gene and Henry Winkler is awesome in this. And right before that whole thing, when they're looking at the stuff outside the Shakespeare festival or whatever rolls, he comes out the door and he's like, the detective is here to ask you questions about the murder of Ryan Madison. Like, it makes it real dramatic, And great. So it leads to the fact that they know the person in the photo is over 6 feet. So there are 3 people in the class that have that description. Mm-hmm. And so she re-interviews all these guys and everything. Barry's got this whole thing set up where if this ever happens, she'll call this number of people that can give him an alibi. And of course, it's Fuchs who's got the box phone.
It's brilliant too. Because that scene took me by surprise, because there's so many different ways that it could go, right? Mm-hmm. But he's so assured. He's like, yeah, I went and hung out with, John Adams or whatever. And then we went over to have a nightcap with like Ramon Sanchez or something like
Diaz.
that. Ramon Diaz. Yep. And it's said in such a way that you're like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty measured. I guess he's been through this before.
Yeah.
But then the icing on the top is all the Fuchs stuff, like going through the phones.
Yeah,
and everything.
He's got like 10 phones in this one box, all with labels of the name of whoever supposedly they're calling for.
Did you get the idea that she really wanted to rule all these guys out? That this is because that meant that you could have the love interest with Cousineau.
I don't know where she's at with that, because
she really wanted to rule him out.
It's very complex, isn't it?
It is, because she's using him. They're very clear about this in these 2 episodes. She's using that connection to prolong her dalliance with him. And
she even says, almost slips up and says, Gene, Mr. Cousineau.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, in a sense, she's trying to get this done with so that she could potentially have a long-term relationship, but I don't know if she wants that long-term relationship. So in the meantime, she's using this as a lifeline, and that's why her partner is saying, like, why aren't you taking these things down? We're done with this. Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, I want to keep this going for a while.
But it's complex, because I do think that in her instincts as a detective, she does believe that it matters.
Yeah.
But she just can't figure out why it does. And then so at the same time, she's like, well, this is a chance for me to do this too, is explore this Cousineau relationship as well. So it is, that's what I love about that dynamic, is that it's never really one thing or the other. But I think in the end, it's her instincts as a detective that it means I need to check this out more.
Exactly. We could go into the gym where they are to bring in the Chechens and all of that.
Oh yeah, because Hank notifies him by saying, Goran wants to see you, and then has that gulp emoji.
That
he's
is
just like,
awesome.
And I mean, that's the part where you can tell how little Hank means to Barry at this point, because he's like, I am dead man, and he's like, I don't care. I honestly don't care. But I am
he's
dead
like,
man.
He should kill you. You brought a lipstick camera to a hit.
He said, well, what can I say? I'm a gearhead, okay? I love Gak.
I love that.
What the hell is Gak? I don't know, but it's awesome.
I'm trying to figure this out. Does he say that in the first episode too? That he's a gearhead?
He says he's a gearhead, yeah.
But he doesn't say the Gak part.
No, he doesn't. No.
Yeah.
I'm so oblivious. It's great. And, the whole gym scene is great because you got Goran. Goran is definitely attached to his family, right? Because this girl, maybe she plays into it later on. Like, she definitely has some sort of connection to him. And my favorite part is Fuchs just pointing out some random kid.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, doing good, dude.
Good job, Jeremy. And she looks at him like, and Goran even's like, what? And Fuchs just
goes
talk,
on.
That's so great.
Just talks to him and like nothing happened there.
You keep getting the idea that these Chechens, these guys do they really believe that they're these mobsters, or do they feel like they're in over their head, or it's almost like they're not confident at all, which is why Fuchs can just lead them much.
Because they don't want to do the stash house, right? Because of all the pressure from the investigation.
Yep.
And I mean, he pushes Goran several times to say, like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And then when he finally gives the green light, like, Barry goes in that night. And he's got, this is why I love this dynamic, because going back to that scene where he's like, fuck, he tells him Taylor's involved and all that. He comes out, and I have to think that there's some intentional symbolism of all these, I've actually got them too, of all these bruises of him getting his ass beat like several episodes ago that are now green and yellow. Like he's regenerating essentially and reasserting his power. And he convinces Barry, like, okay, you've got responsibility for Taylor now. I saved your ass with all that alibi bullshit. So remember how important I am to all this operation. And, essentially convinces him, at least for the time being, to take Taylor out. And I fully think that he went into that raid thinking that he was going to do that. That's the only way that it could have happened. But that's such a nice, that scene in particular is such a nice dynamic in exploring their relationship.
Yeah. When we go to the actual stash house mission, and yes, Barry is trying to tell him all the things that he needs to look, that tells Taylor all the things he needs to look out for and whatever, and Taylor's got the glassy look on his face, and finally it's ready to go, and it's all right, let's go in. And so they go in, and there's nothing, and then a guy coming in with groceries. He's like, and that's the first guy they shoot. And then at first you're wondering, is there even a stash house here? Is there even like anything illegal going on? Because they kill the guy with the groceries. They go into the next room. There's a bunch of people watching TV.
Well, they had said he had seen that room where he said, they're torturing people, and Taylor says, "Sweet."
Yeah.
Well, obviously they're not expecting any sort of assault. There's no security. They walk right the fuck in.
Walk right in.
And this is such a great sequence. It's not a one shot, but when they walk in, this again is Barry being shitty at sneaking up on people. They walk into this fucking room where everybody's just like eating pizza and watching soccer or whatever. And there's a pause before they just ice like all these people. Yeah. And then camera stays on that, and you can hear the footsteps upstairs. And they're like, okay, this is where we got to go. That's how you use action space, right?
Yeah.
That's how you say, like, here's where our protagonists are in space. Here's where they need to go to do the next thing, you know?
It's the thing that they say in the After Barry episode is that Hiro Murai, and I think they mentioned this on the next episode because he does both the next episodes. But they said that he goes in and takes 2 or 3 shots of something, and that's it. And then he's on his way. And so
it's got to be done, right?
Yeah.
Like it's got to be
done. They really
done.
noticed that, like when they were editing it, right? When they were like, I don't know, it's almost like it was easier to edit because you could do that. So
it's got to be.
They hit it.
And I guess it's not for everybody, and it's probably difficult to do because you've got to get that shot perfect, right?
I think some, maybe this is wrong, but I think some directors want to have as much coverage as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when they get all that and they're like, oh yeah, we got that scene, they fall in love with everything.
Yeah.
And so that's
this.
Yeah. So they get into that whole like, we got to show this and this and this and this and this and this, and then it becomes a cut up mess instead of a coherent thing. And that's what I appreciate about an episode like this.
Yeah. It's genius. And I mean, this whole sequence is just is maybe, my jaw was, the first time I saw it, my jaw was dropped because I didn't think this show would go there. Like I figured it would be like an outside shot, some gunfire or whatever, that kind of thing. But they literally take him through, and you can tell that they've been trained. I did see the behind the scenes on this where he has to reload without looking.
Yeah, he has to load it. He almost kind of
But
got
it's amazing because they brought in actual guys to train them how to do that.
And he said that he only got it right once, and he nearly ruined that tape.
Yeah, she's like, almost like, hey, I got it right.
Yeah. I'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I know. It'd be amazing.
So this is a curious thing. You've got the humor. They're right outside the big room and everything. And you got that wonderful moment where Taylor goes in, Leroy!
Right, yeah. But I find it fascinating that they have, Barry wants to do it the very, very controlled. He wants to do 1, 2, 3, we go together. And he yells Leroy Jenkins like that famous YouTube video.
And you're sure he's dead, right?
You got to
sure. Well, and
just
Barry
like the original Leroy Jenkins.
More importantly, Barry thinks he's dead because he's hoping that it does happen. He doesn't have to go through with it.
Exactly. So, and then he comes around and gets knocked out and all that. Have you seen, the original, the Leroy Jenkins TV Explained? I figure most people would know that, and I just...
Oh, it's perfect.
I love that.
It is
perfect. And then he gets knocked out, and when he wakes up, Taylor's just iced everybody.
Yeah, it's great because it's confusing to me because why does that motherfucker knock him out instead of shooting him?
Yeah, I know.
But whatever, it leads to that great dream sequence of him with his future child.
Yes.
Who's named Denzel.
They made that the punchline. It's a whole thing where it's like he's telling his son, like, don't fight in school and you're better than that and everything. And he says, now go back to class, Denzel.
So great. Yeah, no, and it's amazing when he does wake up that you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like that actually, he turns into like fucking Wolverine.
I thought for a minute it might be like a flashback of somebody talking to him, but no, it was another flash forward. But he has the idea of, in the future, I am going to be a better person. I'm going to have a kid. I'm going to tell him not to be violent. That is not okay. This is not how you act, even though my whole life has been like that for the last 20 years or whatever. So it's another good look into his psyche, into his mindset. And then he wakes up.
Yeah. I asked this guy right here. I asked all these motherfuckers in here too.
And then they Taylor finds a bunch of money. And starts piling it in. They said all they said was there were going to be a bunch of guys, right? We killed those guys, so they didn't say anything about this money. And so there's putting in what I believe is $52,000 into a
by a boat.
Imagine how many chicks we can get with this. So then while he's getting that money in, Barry is like, okay, I need to shoot this guy, and he's like got the barrel right up to his head and everything. Cuts to Fuchs, who's in a hotel and who's obviously been like sweating it out the entire time. And when he sees Barry walk through, he couldn't be happier. He knocks over all the stuff that he's been drinking. He's like, "Oh my God, Barry! Oh my God!"
Is there any affection there?
Yeah.
Fuchs really likes Barry. He cares about him. They are family.
He's relieved. It's the same thing as when he came back from hitting the or the failed hit on Ryan and all that stuff, where he gives him a big hug. You get the sense that it's like maybe 60-40 that my paycheck has walked back from this, and then 40 of like actual affection. And I think that's played purposefully.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to ranking things of importance, being successful in the business and getting the stash house is more important.
That's what I'm saying.
Than killing his kid.
I think the skill. He is genuinely glad to see Barry come back. Personally, but I think it's more professionally too.
Yeah,
monetarily. Or do you get the sense it's the other way around?
I get it the other way around, or else it wouldn't have been portrayed as it was.
Interesting.
It's now you could be right. It just could be some additional flavor that they've thrown into this, because you don't usually see that. It seems like there's a disconnect a lot of times with these type of characters when they've ordered somebody to go out and do something, or they weren't ever a part of it. You don't see them emotional about it at all when that person comes back. You know, it's a rare thing to actually see the person, and you can tell just by one shot that he's been doing this probably the whole morning or whole night or whatever. Yeah. I do think that, yes, the money is a huge factor and everything, but I think there's a little bit more to it than that. I think the emotional part is a little bit higher.
It's definitely there for sure. And you're right. Sure. You don't see that. You don't see that in like Polar. Yeah. When Duncan comes back home after killing a bunch of fools.
Yeah. I can't think of any examples of where there's a character like Fuchs, who ordering people to kill or whatever, but you can see it in I gave mobster crime bosses, whatever, who've gone and said, hey, you need to go out and do. You don't see them like all happy and worried that they're, the person that they sent out. Because most of the time it is professional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then Taylor comes in. And
Taylor does come in.
Sits. Oh, go ahead.
I want to ask you about that because the show has set you up, or set me up at this point, to where I genuinely don't know whether he's going to kill Taylor or not. In that moment where he's got the gun cocked,
we don't know.
I could see either scenario happening in that moment. I even had the same thought before I realized that I know what happened when I watched it the second time. And I think that's a credit to the show, to where it's like, you don't know which direction we're going in. He could ice this fool right now and everything would be different, or he could really complicate things and bring the guy back. And I think they obviously chose the more complicated way. And then when you see Taylor show up, you're like, holy fuck, wow, this is going to change like the dynamic for the rest of the season, right?
Exactly. And I think that's where the through line of the toxic masculinity thing comes in, because he's sitting there normally, if this had been like a year before, he would have just killed him. There wouldn't have even been a thought. But now he has this idea, I can be a better person. I don't want to be toxic. And so he didn't kill him, and he's thinking he can have, so now maybe he's doing actually the right thing. He doesn't want to kill a Marine. And also he's thinking, maybe Taylor can be my replacement. We start to see that in the next episode.
Because obviously he sees how effective he is. He took out the whole fucking stash out by himself, right? And that last shot of him, like,
high five. And Fuchs is just like refuses.
And Taylor just doesn't care. It's just like, high five. All right, you didn't, whatever. No high five.
But it does translate, that his, sort of his diss there does translate into the next episode, though, because when they there's in the next episode he asks he said, you should ace that dude, and he goes, what, Fuchs or whatever, and he's like, he's a pretty cool guy. He's like, that dude sucks or whatever. And so it does come back to that.
I think that it's really interesting how much Barry wants him to be a good guy, a stand-up guy, someone that he can rely on. You go back to the very first scene of the episode where they're at the fun fair, and Taylor's been calling him, and he's just asking Chris over and over, like, he's a good guy, right?
Yeah.
He's a good guy. And like, turns out he was like the first guy to ever be kicked out of this, what is it? A group that's like
a PTSD.
PTSD, get them back. And so the guy has PTSD and all that, and they kicked him out because he's too much, but he is so desperate and so needs to believe that he can do this and that it'll be okay and that he can maybe take over. So, and that also has the scene where he has the toy gun.
Yeah.
And he wins the rats. Ding. So here you go. Oh, okay, good.
There's a lot that is there that is brought up by that scene. First off, Barry gets to meet Chris's family, which is going to be a huge thing later on. The fact that Chris can't shoot anymore. I mean, it's saying he's rusty, but it's saying he can't shoot anymore.
Right.
And that's going to factor into some of his decision. You see the decision in the next episode. And then Barry just goes up there and just without even thinking about it, hits it. So much done. And just, that's why these shows are great, right?
Yep.
that's just a thrown away like that. You don't even need to take anything out of that to enjoy the episode, but that just one shot tells you so many things that are about to happen. So I really love that. That's
one thing about the show is so often there's a look, there's an expression, there's a little joke thrown in that adds to it and is funny, like with him shooting that and getting the rat. And that's part of why we love it. And I think it adds even more right after, they show the Barry dun 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 dun, all that. And then it says that Sharon doesn't want his wife Sharon to know that they were hanging out. That adds to it. Like she thinks that he's nuts, and he is. And then he takes their picture and he has his own flash forward dream with Sally of being with the kids and all of that, and having that picture, and it makes you kind of feel for Barry because he is so just wrong.
He is. This is my favorite episode of the season. I think there's parts of later episodes that absolutely just murder me. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But that I love. But start to finish, especially coming on the heels of what I thought was the lowest point in the series or in the season in episode 4, this one absolutely blew my balls off.
Yeah.
Balls were blown.
Yeah.
Boom.
Another random.
I hope they grew back.
Yeah,
they did.
Okay, good. Another random thing when Barry has been interviewed by Moss and he goes back out into that waiting area and she's talking to Jermaine and Jermaine's like, "Hey man, you think Eric did? I think Eric did this." And Eric's like waves at him and everything from afar, and Jermaine turns to him and goes, "See, man."
He's one of those characters that has a small roles, but that when he says something, it's hilarious and it's great. And there's a scene in episode 6, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We didn't touch on the what's her name was jealous about Zach. That Sally went off with Zach at in episode 4. Yeah. I thought that was another way that Sally is being different from the group and kind of being not liked, but it's showing how she is very self-centered again and very different. So,
oh yeah, man. I mean, I think I said in the last episode or maybe the one before. I don't know if we're supposed to like this character. Like, I think really starting in season or episode 3 is where her true character started coming out after she sleeps with Barry. And it's like, all right, instead of that first couple of episodes where it's all inclusive and warm and trying to help Barry, trying to help the other people in her group, it's all about her now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that scene that Mike brought up, they're in the bar and she is reacting to what happened with Barry and also causing her own damage at the same time. That's basically where that's coming from. And she's now realizing that maybe she's gone a little bit too far too, because Natalie's been talking about this Zach dude for weeks. Everybody knew she liked that dude. And then she goes off and she's like, well, we're adults. It doesn't matter. And he's like, what is this, middle school? And it's like, no, it's acting class.
She's like, I'm trying to be constructive. And she's like, that's the opposite of constructive. That's unstructive.
One thing I wanted to point out that I had in my notes was after the alibis, she gets all the alibis and she really seems to want to believe them. She does, after that, go to Gene's house to have sex.
Oh, yeah. She fucks the hell out of him.
She is ready.
He's like, we're doing this.
So
that's in episode 5 too?
That's in episode 5. And I had forgotten that part. So I looked through there and that is so much of the reason to me why she wanted those alibis to be true, and she was going with it. It seemed to me she was going with it a bit too much. So
it's a great scene though. She tackles it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like, oh, we're doing this. We're doing this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was episode 5 of Barry. Definitely one of the best ones of the season. All right. Well, we have some social media set up if you wanted to talk about this episode.
Yeah, go to Twitter. It's on the show notes. Go to SoundCloud. Twitter is @NowStarting. And Brother Mike is handling that handle, and we'll be all checking out with it. Give your questions there. Give your comments there. Go to SoundCloud on that page and give your questions and comments. We love it. We love hearing from you.
What was the Twitter handle called again?
@NowStarting.
Okay.
So it's inverted because apparently somebody had.
There's somebody already had a starting now.
Assholes.
Yeah. Who could that be?
I don't know.
Dude, we need to. We're giving them advertisement. I hope it's not like some like Nazi Twitter.
Starting now, the Fourth Reich.
Yeah, exactly. That would be awful.
I gotta look it up.
Yeah, but that'll do it for this episode. It's Chris Atkinson, Barrett Scher, Mike Astor. We'll see you next time.